Good morning and welcome to NBC6 Voices. I'm Jawan Strader. We continue to monitor the outcomes following the arrest of former felons on voter fraud charges. Just last week, a Miami judge tossed out another case brought by the state's newly created Office of Election Crimes and Security. NBC6's Phil Prazen begins our coverage.
Now, all of this has the caveat that the state of Florida is going to appeal these cases to a higher court. But so far, we have one woman in Central Florida who pled no contest for time already served. We have one man in Central Florida who had his case dropped because he's already going to prison on another issue. And then here in South Florida, we have two judges on two separate cases, both throwing the case out over jurisdiction issues. This case involved Ron Miller. Because he was convicted of murder 32 years ago, he was not legally allowed to vote. However, in the confusion after Amendment 4 giving many felons their rights back, he thought he could, so he registered. And that registration was reviewed by the state of Florida, and the Miami-Dade Supervisor of Elections sent him a voter ID card for the 2020 election.
Why did I receive the card if I didn't supposed to have the card? And when I received the card, I took it to my rights restored, and then I went and used the card.
His attorneys argued the case should be tossed out because the state prosecutor only has the power to take cases involving two or more jurisdictions. Since Miller lives and voted in Miami-Dade County, they argued his case should have been handled by the local prosecutor, not the state. In a short ruling late Wednesday evening, Circuit Court Judge Laura Ann Stuzen sided with Miller, dismissing the case, writing, "The Office of State Prosecutor does not have jurisdiction to investigate and prosecute the defendant as part of a related transaction in two or more judicial circuits."
To me, the whole thing's been a big waste of money, a big waste of time.
His attorney, Robert Barrar, tells me he thinks these cases should never have been brought.
I mean, to me, the whole thing was, quite frankly, ridiculous. I mean, we were looking forward to going to trial, because I had no question in my mind that he would be found not guilty because there's no criminal intent.
The state argued since voter information is reviewed in Tallahassee, that creates another jurisdiction. In a brief statement, the state prosecutor tells NBC6 this is not over. "We will appeal," State Prosecutor Nick Cox says. "As cases are ongoing, we cannot comment further." And the press secretary for Governor Ron DeSantis told me that, in their view, illegal voting anywhere in the state impacts all the elections in the state and all the elected officials in the state. So they feel like it is the appropriate place to have it in the state prosecutor's office. They have already officially made their appeal to a higher court, that circuit court. This case may end up going all the way to the Florida Supreme Court. Phil Prazen, NBC6 News.
I am joined now by attorney Robert Barrar, who represents Ron Miller, the man profiled in Phil Prazen's story. Welcome to the show this morning.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you, and we appreciate you. So a few questions for you. So the state has already filed an appeal with the Florida State Supreme Court. What does that mean for your client, Mr. Miller?
Okay, well, actually, the notice of appeal has been filed, and there's an intermediate court, which is the Third District Court of Appeal. They would hear this case initially. And when there's an appeal to the Third District Court of Appeal, and there's several districts within the state, the court has to consider the appeal itself. Then whoever might not prevail in the appellate court, then they can ask the Florida Supreme Court to consider it, but the Florida Supreme Court does not have to hear it. That's discretionary.
Okay. And I want to get a little bit more, again, to your client, because your client says at the time of his arrest, his home was surrounded by armed agents. Now, compared to other cases of voter fraud in the villages where people were able to surrender to authorities, what do you think about the accounts for discrepancy in your client's treatment?
Well, I think it's horrible. Everybody should be treated equally, without question. And I can't speak to exactly what happened with other people, but I know from what Mr. Miller told me, that's what happened to him. And if other people were treated and situated differently, that to me is appalling.
And why do you think that he was treated that way? And not just your client, by the way. We've done stories on others here in the state of Florida. up north, where the treatment was a little over the top, especially when it was, senior citizens. And there was a case not too long ago of that happening. What do you think about that? And why do you think that he was treated that way, allegedly?
My honest opinion, because
Your
he's
honest
African
opinion.
American. And for years, the criminal justice system has come down harder on African Americans. I've seen it both as a defense attorney, and prior to being a defense attorney, I was a prosecutor in Miami-Dade County from 1987 to 1989. I mean, to this day, you go into the courtroom, and although I don't go in that often these days because of Zoom, but the people in the box are predominantly African American.
So I want to know more about Mr. Miller. I just want to know, as far as what will it take to have him cleared completely?
Well, as of now, the case is dismissed, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
In the event the Third District Court of Appeal reverses the decision of Judge Stuzin, then he would stand trial, because Mr. Miller has indicated to me, rightfully so, I might add, that he didn't do anything wrong. He was issued a voter's registration card, and he voted because of it. If there's any issues to be made, quite frankly, it should be with the people that issued the voter registration card, because they didn't do their job. If he wasn't eligible to vote, he should have never been given a voter registration card that said, go ahead and go vote. I mean, with all the things and all the misconceptions with Amendment 4, which gave felons their right to vote, how is he to know? And as a matter of fact, now, as a matter of course, if you're placed on probation, there is language in the probationary documents that say it is now up to you to determine if you're eligible to vote, and you should consult a lawyer. And the unfortunate thing is most people that find themselves in the criminal justice system are indigent. They can't afford to hire a lawyer to say, is it okay for you to vote?
Does your client want to vote again? I mean, after this is all said and done, is this something that he wants to do?
I think he would if it was clear that he was allowed to, without question. And as I said before, I think everybody in this country who pays taxes and lives in this country should have the right to vote.
Well, Attorney Robert Berard, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate you, and thank you so much for your insight on this very important issue. And we will stay in touch with you as well.
Well, great. It was a pleasure being here, and I hope things work out for Ronald, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter, so to speak.
Coming up next, we'll see how Black men are gearing up and making it their mission to save our children one toy and one suit at a time when Voices continues.